very generously with, I'm sorry, it said, I got a little distracted. I might have not, it might not all be on there. So let me start over again. We're going to have to figure that one out, Jen. Um, so my name is Eka Capiotis, and I'm here on behalf of the Front Royal Women's Resource Center, and I'm very excited to have Kate Campbell Stevenson as our guest tonight. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
And Kate is here very generously giving us her time. She was actually going to be in a larger program that we do called Spotlight, and we're not sure exactly how the plans are going to work for that this year. So Kate has generously offered to come and give us a little taste of some of her presentation. Kate is an award-winning actor and um, a devoted catalyst for women's issues, families, and communities. But you have an amazing background that you've developed programs that you give in schools and for public to raise awareness about voting and women's issues. And so I'm very excited to have you, especially at this time. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here.
Great. And so, tell us a little bit about how did this become something important to you?
Well, I've been in performing since I was a young child. And actually, it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized how, how community participation, women's empowerment, and the theater arts all came together. Um, my mom was a big inspiration to me on that because she was fighting for a new program in our little tiny town in Michigan, how to fund special ed schools. And she decided, I'll put on a play. And she got her children and my friends to join in, and we put on the Pied Piper of Hamelin. And it was during that time I realized not only did I have a lot of fun, but I realized the power of the arts to make change. And so that's how it all began. Then I went on to do over 20 years in Broadway shows and regional theater around the country. And then I realized I needed something more. And when I saw my daughter and trying to hold herself back from school, not wanting to just stick out. And she was brilliant, of course, not only because she's my daughter, but she is.
And
And
in what way did she not want to stick out?
well, she wouldn't participate. I mean, she knew all the answers. She was
Oh,
aware of everything that was going on. She was um, very cognizant of the materials that she was learning and so on. And she just didn't. She wanted to blend in and didn't want to stick out. And
hmm.
um, she was holding herself back, and that's what really bothered me because I remember doing that when I was her age in fourth, fifth, sixth grade, holding myself back. The boys didn't like it when you could either physically uh, wrestle them or
Yes.
be their equals or more.
It, it's
And
a big problem.
it is, and it's a cultural problem, and
Mhm.
I went through it growing up. And when I saw this happening to my daughter, generation later, I was furious because today we can't, whether you're a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, you need to develop yourself to your finest potential. So that is when I became very active. Instead of just talking about something, I wanted to do something. I wanted to take action. And that's when I decided to really become, started my series of one woman shows, Women Back to the Future, my company. And I produce one woman shows around the country. And I have over 23 different programs that I can put forth. And
Wow.
it's all about um, putting women role models out there. Because when I started this over 25 years ago, there were, for the most part, the same 5 women that were in the history books, very 1 or 2 lines, was the same situation when in my daughter's class. And I thought, this is wrong. And it was just as important for my son to learn about all of these things as it was my daughter.
Very
And so
good.
it was a mother's anger that really motivated me
Yeah.
to get off my duff and try to do something positive to correct, to address the problem.
Well, it sounds like your programs sound amazing, and I think you're going to be doing a taste of that for the spotlight, which
Mm-hmm.
is to commemorate the 100th anniversary. This year is the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote.
Of women winning the right to vote.
Thank you,
Mhm.
winning because
They
it
weren't
was.
given the right to vote. They won the right to vote. They fought very
Thank
long
you.
and hard for it.
Yes, and that's a big part of what you're teaching people about, like you just taught me the right word to use.
Absolutely. And really here the word for a woman in the United States who was working and continues to work for women's rights, or women in the vote, is a suffragist, not suffragette.
Oh, okay.
Suffragette is a diminutive term. It was what was used in England, and when it came over here to the United States, it was utilized. It was turned into suffragist, because ETTE is a diminutive form in the English language, and it was. And I learned this from a suffragist here in the United States, or
Okay.
who studied history, and I said the word suffragette, and boy, did she ring me up one side and down the other. This is why the word is used. It's suffragist.
And is that, and I mean, they really suffered to get the vote.
Yes, the
There was
suffrage is actually in the Latin term for voting. So
voting.
that's what
Okay.
that's what it how it comes together. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, it has a rich meaning in
Mhm,
that realm.
mhm.
So, and you actually have studied quite a bit yourself about what happened. And you know, is that part of your story that you talk about them, what happened and what they, how
Yes, I bring to life women from different segments of the suffrage movement. It was a long movement. Actually, Margaret Brent here in my state, home state, well, my adopted state, here in Maryland, she demanded the right to vote. She went to the state governor's office, and this is I think it was in the early 1600s, and she was a
wow.
landowner. She was a landowner, and she wanted to have the right to vote, and because the laws were affecting her, of course, they didn't do, they didn't acquiesce to her demands. But she was one of the first women in the United States to demand the right to be heard and the right to vote. And then, of course, Abigail Adams has the famous speech, "Remember the ladies," when she wrote this letter to her husband, um, and John, or "Remember the ladies, or we will foment a rebellion, and we will not consider ourselves inferior to men." And of course, her husband did not honor her wishes then. And so women had to gather together, and the frustrations of that early time really became a roar of discontentment. And in the middle 1800s, the 1848, the first women's suffrage convention was held in Seneca
Wow.
Falls. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I didn't realize that it went that far back.
Oh yeah,
So,
oh yeah.
like the Equal Rights Amendment now,
Well, that was
they're
started in 1921, I believe, 1921, 22.
okay.
So
Wow.
that's been a long struggle. And your state, Virginia, recently passed to make it the 36th state, but now we need to jump through some hoops to get the ERA passed. And what's an interesting fact about the ERA is that it really was part of the Republican women were a main thrust in getting that established.
Hmm.
Alice Paul was a staunch Republican, and
Is
in the
that
90s,
right?
and she was the author of the Equal Rights Amendment, and it was part of the Republican platform up until maybe a decade ago. So it's kind of interesting how that is, the dynamics of that have changed. But I think it's so important to understand that whether you are, no matter what your politics, that our voices need to be heard. And we need to have equality. We're over 51% of the population, and we are not in the Constitution. And instead of spending all our time fighting a battle, uh, one issue at a time, about our rights, it should be across the board equal.
Yes. And so, just in case there are any listeners that don't know what we're talking about the Equal Rights Amendment, which would guarantee equal rights for women. And it's just hard to believe that in 2020, women are not guaranteed equal rights. We certainly know that they don't experience equal rights, um, you know, compared to men. But the fact that that's not legally protected is really,
It's mind blowing, really, whether it's in medicine, equal rights in medical needs and so on, all the way across the board in every issue. Why should we have to legislate or be fighting for every ounce of getting closer to being treated as equals?
yeah. Well, it's heartening. The changes that are happening right now are heartening in that it seems like, I do believe in that phrase, high water floats all boats. And I think that bringing awareness, that the kind of awareness that's coming up now, I think has to be really helpful for everyone. So
Yes, it is. It's not a threat. Equal rights for women voting is not does not diminish men's voices. It
it's not
it's
pie, right? Isn't that what they say? It's not pie. If I get a slice, it doesn't mean you don't get as much.
That's
It's not
correct.
pie. So will you tell you know something about the suffragists that were at the White House? They were picketing the White House, and can you just tell a little bit of that story because it's really fascinating.
Well, the silent sentinels. This was really the first time men or women ever protested in front of the White House. And what was fascinating is that they were called the silent sentinels because they weren't chanting anything. They were protesting with banners outside the White House, and they were physically roughed up. They were attacked. They were thrown in prison, on jail, on trumped up charges of obstructing traffic because they actually broke no laws. And
Yeah,
so things were, you know, just really wrong back then. And
yeah.
it was just trying to use their voices. We have a right to be heard. We have a right to address. This is, in the Constitution, but actually women aren't in the Constitution. We need to change that.
We need to change
We need to.
that.
So the suffragists really started a lot of things, and it wasn't. It was during. Interestingly enough, it was during world. All of this was sort of coming to a head. It was during World War I. It was also during the uh, flu pandemic.
Yeah,
And what do we have over 100 years later? We have a
it's
pandemic.
fascinating.
Yes, there's a lot of
Hmm.
correlation there, which is
Hmm.
amazing. And yet, women need to come together to own their voices, to stand up and to be recognized, and to own their power.
And so tell me, I'm going to just be, I know it's a crazy question, but I want to give you the opportunity to really talk about it more in detail. Why is it so important that women vote? And what is different about women voting than, men voting? Why is,
Women have a
what,
unique perspective,
mhm,
a unique perspective, and they analyze things differently. They can bring their talents to the table. It's just so important that they're included across the board.
Hmm.
We have, talking about the early women suffragists here, I wanted to mention that, first of all, there's a great book about why they marched, and it's by Susan Ware, Why They Marched. And I spoke with, on the same day with Susan, I did my show at the National Archives for their um, opening of their latest exhibit, Rightfully Hers, How Women Won the Vote. And it was
Hmm.
fascinating listening to Susan talk about her book. And one of the things she stressed was suddenly women never before participated. And now they found themselves doing things that they never would have thought possible. Filing lawsuits, holding public protests, collecting signatures on petitions, lobbying members of Congress, marching in suffrage parades. Lives were profoundly altered by participating in the struggle to win the vote. And here we are 100 years later, and we still haven't reached that equality. But we do know, or many of us know, how important it is to use our voices, to own our power, to
Yeah.
organize, to be at the table. Oh, I got my great T-shirt on. It says, "Women." Let's see here.
Can you stand up?
Women should be in
Oh,
all places where decisions are made. Great quote from one of my heroes, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, our second
mhm.
woman on the Supreme Court. But
Yes.
that's so true. We need to be in every place where decisions are made, because every decision that's made undoubtedly will affect women too. Not just
Yeah.
men, but it'll affect women. Women, families, what there will be some way that'll be coordinated. So that's why it's so important. They need to be, it's that we voice our opinions at the ballot box. So
Yes.
they, and vote for the people that we believe will give us the best uh, voice for our voices. It's so important for all of us to get out and vote. And it is our right. Now, technically, men say we're in the Constitution because all people in the um, Constitution have the right to, over 18 now have the right to vote. But uh, it's not always encouraged, and many times women have been holding themselves back. No, get out there and vote. One
Hmm.
vote can make a difference.
Well, we've
Extremely.
seen that recently, haven't we? Yeah. And
Absolutely.
and I think you're
And
right. It's that.
all women, every color of the rainbow, every color, I mean, all women, what, no matter how much money you make, or where you live, it is important that each one of us has that right and exercises the right to vote.
I think that we could change a lot of things if we were really able to get out the vote. And so, are there any suggestions that you have for women to support each other in
Yes.
doing this?
First of all, there are so many organizations that are working for women, women helping women, lifting them up. There are African American sororities that are working together. There's a League of Women Voters. There's so many ways we can become active, um, no matter what your politics are.
Right.
It's important that you make sure your voice, your vote is counted. I am currently the co-president of AAUW Maryland, that which is the American Association of University Women, and we work in building women up and helping them with learning how to lobby. I've been part of their lobby efforts here in the state, working for laws that would improve women's lives. What I find
Mhm.
mind boggling today is that even in the prison system, they have money that's set aside for when prisoners are let out of prison, they go to like a halfway house or whatever. The men do. In Maryland, we have 13 different facilities for men. There's not one for a women coming out. They just
Oh my
open the door and
gosh.
push them out. I mean, that's where the disparities are. And
Wow.
so, and I mean, I'm supposedly from a progressive state, uh, but that's just not the case nationwide. I mean, it's women need to speak up no matter what the situation is. And also well, I won't go into all that, but many laws I've been working with AAUW in the public policy area. And this is what really, when I saw this quote from Susan Ware talking about suddenly women who have never before participated in politics found themselves doing things they never would have thought possible. Now, 3 years ago, I had never testified in front of our state legislature, but I started 3 years ago. And I thought, wow, I can do this. But there were women there who helped me. But please, anybody who's out there listening, it is so important to. There's so many women's groups out there that can help you connect with things you care about and lift you up. Use your specific talents, whether you are great at graphic artists or great at writing. You could write ads, you could write public policy, there's so many ways you could use that talent. Or whether you're a public speaker, you can help get the message across to other people. So I mean, there's so many ways you can use your talent, and we need a real array of talents in putting this all together. And that's what Alice Paul and the early suffragists did too. They were Susan B. Anthony was a real organizer, and Lucy Stone was a great orator. There were so many people working together, and that's how we make things happen. Tying in with the suffrage, you're going to get me going here. Tying in with the suffrage movement, it's when Alice Paul in 1910 to 1920, she was a young suffragist then, and she helped form a new. She joined the younger group, maybe a little bit more. They called them radical. There wasn't anything that was really radical, but I mean, by our standards today. But oh my goodness, women expressing their views back then or speaking out was rather radical at the time. But it was so interesting to note that when the young people, when the young leaders got together with the older women, they knew they needed each other to make things happen. And that's how the 19th Amendment was passed. It's when the National Women's Party joined with Cherry Catman Cat, with NAWSA, National American Women's Suffrage Association. When they joined together, the young and the old joining together, that's when change happens. And that's what happens today in all of the movements that are going on to take our country, to take our society forward in a positive way. It's when you get the young people and for instance, with the gun lobbies and so on, how the youth decided to stand up and talk when they had the terrible thing at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. They organized and they sort of put the adults to shame here, how they said, we need to speak up. No matter the point about bringing this up now is that whatever it is you care about, it's important to use your voice, not be silent. When you're silent, that's a negative. That's a negative across the board. Even with Black Lives Matter. You may have a great heart, but if you don't stand up, if you don't speak out against injustice, against what you perceive to be the problems, the needed conversations will not happen. And we all need to support each other in those movements. Find out, it's like, how can I do? I'm just one person. Well, there's a lot you can do. Just like my mom did when she was fed up in our town, Ionia, Michigan. She wanted to change the way things were happening for special ed students. And she said, I can do a play. And got our young people together, 4th, 5th, 6th graders, doing the play in 3 different parts of our county. And we made the difference and getting that. Uh, it was a tax that was put on to help fund that educational. So it's solving problems as along the way, and working together that and communicating makes a difference.
Yes. And it's I kind of hate to admit this, but when I joined the Women's Resource Center, um, on it was 20 years ago now. I was not a young person then, but I came in so ignorant about women's issues. Like I thought, well, I can do anything I want. I just really, I thought that these things were old, didn't have anything to do with me. And oh my God. So through the Women's Resource Center, I have learned so much. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be doing things like this where we can send out the information and educate other people, because it certainly is, we certainly need to be doing that.
It
And
is
right now,
valuable. It is valuable, very valuable. And
yeah,
I was so busy with my career early on, and then I had my kids. And I remember I was strolling around my neighborhood, and there was a woman who was very active in her political party. And she stopped me, and when I had my baby in the stroller, and she said, "Did you vote in the primary?" And I went, "Oh, no, I didn't." And she again reamed me up one side and the other and educated me about why it is so important to vote in primaries, to
yeah,
get the person who you feel would be your best representative onto the docket. And not
right.
only that, now, I mean, and so that was my wake up call. That was my wake up call. That was a while ago. That was over 30 years ago. And so it's no matter what your age, when knowledge is power, and when we learn about what actually is happening, not when somebody tells you, but to do the research, to really do your studies, do your background. Don't accept one side or the other or whatever. You need to educate yourself to what's going on in the world, and there are so many ways that each individual can make a difference. It's collectively, one little step at a time, we can change the world.
Yeah. And I'm so also so heartened by all the young people that are coming out now
Mm-hmm.
in support of Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's like, it's just wonderful. And I just can't help but think that there's going to be a wave of people who are much more aware and educated about these issues. And they are going to take it to the polls. So,
Yes, and that's realizing the power of the polls. Somebody says, "Well, I don't." Oh, somebody there was a interesting analogy being made. Well, there isn't anybody who's my perfect candidate out there. That's never going to happen. What you need to do
right.
is find the candidate, vote for the candidates, vote for the people. First of all, vote for the people you want to be on the ballot to begin with before you go to the main elections. But no matter if they don't have all of your quote requirements. If they can get that bus a little closer to the goal line of what you're looking for, that's what we need to work with, because there
Yeah.
is no perfect candidate, but it's working together to solve the problems, and that's where we can make progress.
And so, I know that you have a little song that you'd like to sing to wrap up our program, and I
Do
think
this.
that perfect timing.
Yes, I do. This is the song. I don't have the background. I'm just going to sing part of it a cappella. It's called
Yeah.
Standing on the Shoulders. And it's by Joyce Johnson Rouse. And she wrote this song, the words and the music. She wrote this song in 1995. No, well, for the 75th anniversary of women's suffrage. So it's been around a while, and
Yeah.
I've asked permission to be able to perform this in my new Amending America show, and so I will be putting that in. But this rings so true to me, how we stand on the shoulders of women who've come before us. But also, I have two granddaughters right now. One's 5 and one is 9 months. And I'm looking at the world today and I think I cannot sit back. I need to work to make our world, our country, my state, my county, my city better place to live. And so this song has great meaning to me, um, to sing it. And I'll just start.
All right.
I am standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I am stronger for their courage. I am wiser for their words. I am lifted by their longing for a fair and brighter future. I am grateful for their vision, for their toiling on this earth. We are standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before us. They are saints and they are humans. They are angels. They are friends. We can see beyond the struggles and the troubles and the challenge. And we know that by our efforts, things will be better in the end. They lift me higher than I could ever fly, carrying my burdens away. I imagine a world if they hadn't tried. We wouldn't be here celebrating today. I am standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I am honored by their passion for our liberty. I will stand a little taller, I will work a little longer, and my shoulders will be there to hold the ones who follow me. My shoulders will be there to hold the ones who follow me.
Bravo!
Thank you. So, people,
Wonderful.
go out and vote and make sure you help others. Encourage others to do the same. Not just you, but get your neighbors. See if you can help, with transportation for the elderly, or encourage people to vote by mail, of course, with this COVID situation. But
Right.
whatever it is, make your voices heard.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making your voice heard. I so appreciate you coming, and information about you is included in the video and the event page. Um, and anyway, I'm just thrilled to be here, to have you here. And I want to give a shout out to Jo Ellen McNeil, one of the co-founders of the Front Row Women's Resource Center, because she's the one who has connected you with us. And it's also her birthday. So
Oh,
if you're
happy
watching,
birthday,
happy
Joelle.
birthday. So thank you so much, Kate. And I really appreciate all that you're doing, and look forward to having you back in our sharing your wonderful stories in our community again. So thank
I
you very
look forward to
much.
it too. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Bye bye now.
Bye.